Do you run servers both in the cloud and on premises, or even multi-cloud environments? Does your IT infrastructure and server environment seem to get more and more complex? Thomas is here to show us how Azure Arc for Servers can help us manage and govern servers across hybrid environments today on Azure Friday. Hey everyone, Donovan Brown here with another episode of Azure Friday. I'm here with Thomas, and we're going to be learning all about Azure Arc for Servers. Now, why are we qualifying it for servers, just right off the top?
So we have a lot of customers now in those hybrid environments, right? And they are getting more and more complex. They're running servers on-prem, they're running servers in Azure, there are servers running in like other cloud providers, right? So they are basically in a multi-cloud environment. And with the complexity they get, they have like running different apps. They're running like modern apps, PaaS apps, based on containers, cloud native apps. But they're also running some of these classic apps, right? They're running in virtual machines, and some of them even on physical machines, right? So we see that they have a lot of challenges in managing that, right?
Okay.
It's not just running, again, in Azure or on-prem in their data centers. Maybe they also have like stores or branch offices where they run systems.
Sure.
And having an overview about these systems is very, very difficult today. Okay. So that's where we actually address it with Azure Arc and give them a tool so they can use the cloud-native Azure management tools to basically manage the servers across their hybrid environment.
Got it. So it doesn't matter where your server lives, you still get to use the power and convenience of the Azure Portal to manage all of your servers as if they were just VMs running in Azure.
Absolutely, yes.
Got it.
That's
cool
the idea.
deal. So showing how it works.
Okay. So here we are in the Azure Portal, right? And you can see here, usually if I go to all resources, you can see here, I see all my Azure resources. Now, wouldn't it be great to also see my resources running on-prem?
Absolutely.
So what I can do here, let me show you that. So we're going to limit this and say, okay, I just want to see my servers or machines. So I can see here my Azure virtual machines, and now I have a button for my Arc machines. So let's add that as well.
And an Arc machine, that's just a nomenclature, but that just means any machine that has been registered to be a peer here, right? But it's like, there's not a such thing as an Arc machine as a type of a product that you
buy. Yeah, absolutely. So when I talk about Arc machines, then that's basically just your server. Can be a Linux server or a Windows server.
Okay.
And you basically just install an agent on it.
All right, perfect.
So now you can see here, I have some Azure machines and some Arc machines, and I quickly group that by type so you can actually see that a little bit better. So we have here on the top, we have the Arc machines. Those are my on-prem machines. And then on the bottom, you can see here my classic Azure VMs I have in my portal, as I would know. So I see them now both side by side. On the left side, we can also see I can now use tags like cost centers or locations like I would do for Azure resources, right?
Absolutely.
So then we get also the power of filtering things. So I can go and add a filter. Let's do a filter based on a tag, for example, a cost center. So I want to see all my servers for a specific cost center.
Okay.
So let's do cost center 1001. And you can see now here, I have my Azure VM as well as my on-prem server from that specific cost center, and I see it there.
Perfect.
Now, this is great, right? I have at least an overview about how it's working. But we take it a step further. And that is where Azure Policy basically comes in.
Okay.
So Azure Policy, think about it as a way to configure your Azure environment and basically say, okay, hey, I want to have set some rules. So for example, departments cannot deploy VMs from a specific size or something like that. But what we also have is something called Azure Guest Configuration Policies.
Okay.
And this helps me to manage my servers.
Got it.
Now, we have that for a while now in Azure for my Azure VMs and my Azure servers. But now with Azure Arc, we can also use that and leverage that for my servers running wherever they are running.
So this makes sure that you're going to be compliant regardless, like you said, of where my servers are. This is functionality that I'm now accustomed to and we almost take it for granted that it's on our VMs inside of Azure, but we're extending that functionality to any machine there where you install this agent.
Yep.
You're now going to be able to monitor, make sure that it's secure, password resets, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Right? Got
so
it.
Think about it if like you're using group policy in your small enterprise environment. But now you have different locations and everything, and you're very limited. Azure Guest Configuration Policies is kind of like group policies on steroids. So
without the road rage, right? It's just like good. It's all good. You're going to work in fine.
Exactly. So let me show you that here quickly. So what I have here is I have different policies, and you can see here that I'm not compliant with some of the machines here. So that I'm actually interested to see which machine is basically not compliant. So if I click on this, you can see this policy here doesn't audit for insecure password settings. And this is a built-in one. You don't have to do anything. You just enable it, and you see which machines are not compliant with that. So if I scroll now down here, I can go and see the non-compliant resources. And you can see here, now not just showing my Azure machines, but you can see here the resource type, Microsoft Hybrid Compute machines. So those are basically our Azure Arc service we joined with the agent.
Okay.
So I can see now my server running in my data center is not compliant with that specific setting.
Okay.
So
and because I've used Azure Policy before and Security Monitor, there's all these cool features. Are there any of them that don't apply if it's an Arc server versus those that are just normal VMs?
So all of them who basically are running against the Azure environment, they're not like, because we don't have an Azure environment on-prem, they're not going to work. But if there are like guest configuration policies, they work the same way as they would do in Azure.
Right, so the actual policies of the actual server, the OS itself, that we can actually monitor, right? Well, obviously we can't turn it on or turn it off and things like that, and we don't control the size because you don't provision it like we used to, but anything that happens on the server, those policies are going to apply the same regardless.
Absolutely.
Got it, okay.
Okay, so the next thing I want to show you, and I mean, this was great, right? I have now an overview about my environment. I can see all the servers which are not compliant. Now, if you are a server administrator, and you manage just your single server or just your SharePoint servers, for example, you can also take advantage of this. That is where we have role-based access for it. So if I go home and I want to go to Azure Arc, so I have obviously Azure Arc in the portal, and you can see here, we not just have this for servers, we also have this in the future for Kubernetes clusters, for example, or Azure Data Services. But we really care about the server part right now. So if you go to servers, you can see here all the server which I joined with Azure Arc, which are also assigned to me now, to my user, which I can see, right? There are probably more servers in my company, but I don't have access to them. So that's one really important point. We get all the role-based access features of Azure as well.
Okay, great. One of the things I liked about policy was sometimes they'll give me these like remediation steps, right? And sometimes there's like this one-click remediation. Having an Arc server, can I still take advantage of some of those really quick and easy remediation steps?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a good point. So I have my servers here, and you can see here some of them are connected, so that means they're online, and some of them, they're probably shut down and don't have a connection. So let's have a look at this server here. And the first thing you can see here is really, it looks like an Azure resource. Like you can see here an activity log, you have identity and access management. You can even go and say, okay, here I have tags, so let's go and add a tag. So I can do a location tag here and say, this one actually runs in my Seattle data center. And then I can just save. And basically plug that in there. And the question you had was about policy. So I'm now the owner of that server, and I want to make sure that I comply with company policies. So I can go and say, okay, what are the policies for that server and where I'm not compliant? And you can see here, I have a couple of policies assigned. Some of them I'm compliant, that's great, but I'm interested in the one I'm not compliant in. So you can see here the same one I just showed you before, but this one now is really just for that specific server. So I know I'm not compliant with that. And now that's the question you had was about this remediation task, right? So now instead of going out and checking what actually settings I'm not compliant with, I just click on remediation task. It gives me all the information I need to have, what is going to happen. And I just click on remediate, and basically goes and changes the settings of that server.
Awesome.
And again, this server is not running in Azure. This one is could be running at another cloud provider, on-prem, somewhere in my store. So that's
very nice.
Another thing I want to highlight is, so I told you that some of the servers, as you can see, are not online. So for example, this server 2 here, again, I get the same experience. It will tell me it's not online, so I don't have some of the features available. So if I do now a policy, it will wait with assigning that policy until it's online. However, what I have is I also have logs. Now, this is basically log analytics. Which we know before, right? We used that before. The problem with log analytics was, or the challenge was, that everyone actually who wanted to have a look at these logs need to have access to the log analytics workspace. So you could also see logs from other systems, even if you don't own them. Now with Azure Arc, you only see the specific logs for your servers. And remember, that server is not online. So I usually would have a hard time getting these logs. But since I'm using log analytics, I can basically just go and send a query here and say, okay, I want to have the logs for the last 7 days, and just list me all the updates here. So I can run this.
Yeah, because the logs aren't stored on the server. They're stored external, which is still running, which we can actually get the logs from at any
Exactly.
time.
Yeah. So you can now see here, I get all these logs from the Log Analytic workspace, and I can see here, for example, also which updates are installed and which ones are needed, right, for that specific server.
Yeah, for sure.
Even the server is not connected or online, I still get the information about this.
Great. So it's one of the things I've been thinking about when you said this particular one is offline, there's a feature called Wake on WAN. Are we ever going to add functionality where I could actually like start or restart a server directly from here?
I mean, it would be great, right?
It would
be great. We should definitely tell the team that they should
we'll have to add that one to the wish list, because I was like, man, that would be awesome if I could literally turn that thing on or reboot it. That'd be really nice.
Yep. So the last thing I want to show is actually now what we get a lot of from questions now. I mean, this is great. We have now all that tooling, right? How do I actually add a server?
Sure.
So to do that, I basically just go here and click on Add. And it gives me two options. So if I just want to have add a single server, I can run an interactive script. That means I need to log in. Or I can do basically and go and do onboarding at scale. Then I will use a service principal to basically just do onboarding and kind of run an onboarding script against hundreds of servers if I want to.
Okay, so the first one, it generates the script I need, a RDP into the machine or SSH into the machine, run whatever I need to run, and then that machine pops up as a node inside of Azure.
Exactly. So that's what I'm going to show you now, so we basically understand what is needed to onboard that. So the portal really helps you to basically onboard that system. So you can go out, and what every Azure resource needs is you basically need to join it to a subscription in the resource group. So that's not different from Azure Arc.
Yeah, any other resource, I do the same.
So then I basically tell, okay, which region should we add it to? Like, let's stay with West US 2 here. And then it will ask me about, is this a Windows or a Linux server? So obviously then we have different scripts, right? So in my case, I'm just leaving it on Windows. And if my server is behind a proxy, I can also configure that. So the agent will use a proxy to connect to our Azure endpoints. Right?
So when you're selecting a region here, though, you're selecting where you want the metadata that describes this server to be stored, right?
Yes, and also like, okay, if you select, like if you have servers, if you're a company which has servers running in Europe, you want them to connect to a Europe region. And if you have servers running in the US, you want to connect to a US region.
Gotcha.
So they're closer to your environment.
Okay, it's more than just metadata. It's actually where they're going to phone home to is also going to be physically closer to them.
Yeah.
All right, great. All right, good.
So the next thing I could do is basically add tags. I showed you that before. You can also do that during the onboarding process. And the last thing really is where you get that script. So you can go out and download that script, or you can just have a look at it.
Okay.
And what it basically does, it just goes out and downloads the package, the agent itself, installs the agent, and registers it to your subscription.
Got it. Very, very cool. So how do agent updates get to the server, though? Because I'm sure we're going to rev the agent from time to time. We're going to make sure that it's kept up to date. Does it actually update itself, or how do I go about when version 2.0 of this agent comes out? How do I update it?
So currently, I think we are still in public preview, so we do not have any updates to that specific scenario. But I guess we will auto update that one in the future. That would be my guess.
Awesome. So we are learning all about Azure Arc for servers here on Azure Friday.